Hello, I'm Azai. Welcome back to the Fruit Grisaia. Give me a sec while I continue from where we left off,
続けますね。
which was after the dreaded Michiru sex scene.
あ、ユージ、どうしたの？みちる、具合悪いの？
God. I don't know if I voice out my thoughts all that much during the sex scene. But even then, I think I was like slogging through the sex scene more or less. I kinda remember this has been a few days after. I needed to like rest up before I play another session of this. Like, I think most of the stuff that happened, like I already talked about how it was so awkward. Ooh, my voice is actually pretty loud. Let me see if I can change that real quick. Sorry about this. Give me like a couple seconds. There we go. Should be a tiny bit better, hopefully. I had to change some settings on the like Go XLR. That's the audio USB interface that I'm currently using, and the newest update kind of bricked it, so I had to roll back to an earlier update. Thankfully, there was an earlier update that I can roll back to, because my PC was actually fucking up all over for unknown reason. But yeah, I was talking about the Michiru sex scene, and I think for the most part, I explained quite coherently what I was thinking about how what she does kind of makes sense to a degree, but I always hate it when some people they have to go to something to get rid of the pain that they're experiencing, whether it be alcohol, whether it be, you know, sex, whether it be eating their way out. I mean, there's no real thing for people to cope with when they're like super stressed out. I get that. There's like no real one thing that people can say that it's the end of all things to cope to, right? There's this one activity that people need to do to cope with stress. But I really hate people that rely on stuff that's super negative, especially to themselves and other people. Especially stuff like sex like this. So, when it comes to alcohol, I guess if you're just drinking by yourself, who cares? But when you're having sex, you're clearly doing something with someone else, and I feel like it's kind of being an inconvenience to other people. That's like my like creed in life, I guess you can say. Try not to be overbearing on other people. Try not to inconvenience other people if you don't have to. And I feel like Michiru definitely doesn't follow my sets of principles. And while that's not necessarily something that most people should follow, I personally just cannot like someone that doesn't even think about it. But alright, enough about what I'm saying. Let's just continue what's going on with the story. I just want to say that there's a clear reason why I dislike Michiru, and I want that point to be like get across my point of the reasons why I hate Michiru. And I guess even till this day, 10 years into the future, I still hate her. Maybe for the exact same reason, I'm not sure. But alright, let's continue. Not to worry, the girl's just exhausted. Doesn't look like she's going to wake up anytime soon. So I thought I'd go put her to bed. I think my voice is still quite loud, so I might lower this again. There you go. Oh, that was kind of weird. But another 2 decibels lower now. Hopefully it's not too bad.
そっか、わかった。もし何かあったら助けになるから教えてね。
Yeah, I'll do that. I wait at Michiru's bedside as she sleeps, occupying myself with a book. I feel a little exasperated at myself for reading at a time like this. but it's the surest method I have of regaining emotional balance. It's not like I'm an indifferent robot. Sleeping with Michiru has complicated my feelings more than a little. When I look up from the book for the first time in a while, the girl's awake and watching me quietly. I ask if she's feeling alright, prompting a quiet, "It hurts." What? Did I knock you against something on the way up here?
そうじゃないよ。わかるでしょ。
Michiru squirms under the covers, rubbing her thighs against each other. I see. The pain from losing her virginity is still lingering. Not the sort of thing a man can really understand. Sorry about that.
なんで謝るの？嬉しかったよ。ありがとう。体から幼児の匂いがするの。嬉しい。
As she speaks, Michiru offers me a sincere smile for the first time in a while. Alright then, we're done playing make-believe for the moment, so why don't you tell me about what you've been hiding? I'll hear you out.
どこから話したらいいか自分でもよくわからないんだけど。
I lower my paper back to the floor, shifting my attention to Michiru's story. I feel like my voice is so awkward in my own earbuds. I actually had to do like a 30-minute rollback on this thing because I didn't know what to actually do with the software before. So if I sound any different, I hope you don't mind. To my own ears, it actually sounds a bit different, but maybe not. There is another me inside me. I'm not playing with words or anything. It really is a completely different person. My body doesn't belong to me alone. That really scares me, but it's thanks to her that I'm even alive today. She knows everything about me, but I know nothing about her. In that case, which of us has the better claim to be the real me? I was born into a relatively wealthy family. My parents valued me highly, all the more so because I was their only child. They provided me with an excellent education, hoping to raise me into a worthy daughter. One day could show off with pride. Although I was still a child, no, maybe it's because I was still a child. They brought countless tutors to our home to pack knowledge into my head, like travelers stuffing all their luggage into one tiny, overburdened suitcase. The tutors were all excellent in their fields, and they all charged heavily for their lessons. After studying with them, even the most uncooperative and dim-witted of children could be safely sent off into the world. But I guess I was sort of a special case. It took a lot of time and trouble for me to learn the simplest things. When shown a perfectly clear example, then told, "Now you try, please," I couldn't even imitate my tutors properly. I understood what I needed to do, but when I tried to put that knowledge into practice, my voice would quake and my throat would go dry. Even though I wasn't being threatened in any way, tears would come to my eyes. Piano and violin, arithmetic and English alphabet, it was all the same, no matter the subject. When I hesitated, my tutors would say, "You didn't understand? I'll do it one more time," and repeat the example faster than before. And then they would glare at me with eyes that said, "Get it right already." That really scared me. My body would freeze up entirely. My clothes would grow damp with sweat. By the time my molars began to chatter against each other, I could no longer muster the strength to even try. The tutor would scowl down at me, looking ready to burst into angry shouting at any moment. The heavier their gazes weighed on me, the less I could move or think. Time crawled past in empty silence. In the end, the tutor would simply sigh in exasperation and leave the room. It wasn't uncommon for my lessons to end with nothing more than that. Dejected and humiliated, I could only reflect on my own uselessness. And as I stood in my quiet room, stock still and alone, eventually I would hear an angry voice from outside. Again and again, violent words rattled against my window pane like fat drops of icy rain. I would cover my ears and wait for the storm to pass. It tended to go on for quite some time. When the shouting finally ended and silence returned, My father would come to my room and push open the door.
みちる、どうした？先生に遠慮することはないんだぞ。お前はパパとママの子だ。やればできるんだからね。あの無能どもにはお前のいいところをちゃんと伸ばせるようにとしっかり言ってやったからな。今度からは頑張るんだぞ。
頑張る。
よし、できるな。そうだ、欲しいものはあるか？何でも買ってやるぞ。
My dad was nice to me. It was hard to believe he was the same person who'd been shouting at the teacher just a few minutes ago. When he held me against his broad, powerful chest, I smelled cigarettes and women's perfume. Never the same brand twice. It was comfortable, but also a little scary. I've got to do better next time. I can't let Daddy and Mommy down. That night, I knelt by the window, joined my small hands together, and prayed to the stars.
神様、私がちゃんと習い事やお勉強ができるようにしっかり見守っていてください。
The next day was my regular music lesson. I sat perched quietly in front of a piano that had been shipped overseas from Hamburg, waiting for the teacher to arrive. In that moment, if somebody had snuck up and hit the keyboard, I might have tumbled right off the bench. My anxiety and fear must have shown on my face. When my tutor finally arrived, she closed the door carefully behind her and immediately came to my side.
あなたはね、本当にダメで落ちこぼれでバカなのよ。わかってる？
She spoke in a very gentle voice, so for a moment the sentence didn't really register. But all too soon, I realized that she had spoken awful, terrifying words.
さあ、言ってごらんなさい。私は落ちこぼれのダメな人間です。
The tutor struck me with a thin, stiff rod. The stinging pain of the blow lingered like a nasty paper cut.
あなた日本語がわからないの？誰がそんな返事をなさいって言いました？
だって
さあ言ってごらん。あなたのせいで私がお父様に無能だと言われているのよ。あなたが全部悪いんでしょ？あなたの責任なのよ。はい。私は落ちこぼれでバカのダメな人間です。
I didn't want to say it. Even a child could understand how cruel those words were. But I was so terrified of being struck again that I squeezed them out anyway.
私は落ちこぼれでバカなダメ人間です。
そうね、よくできたわね。褒めてあげましょうね。さあ、クズ、練習するわよ。
はい。
そうそう、先生が指導したところ、お父様に見せたらダメよ。もしそんなことしたら、殺しますからね。
I don't think she could have been serious, but my entire body shrunk in fear. I was so terrified that I couldn't answer. And since I didn't respond, she hit me again.
いい子ね。では、レッスンしましょう。
はい。
I had numerous tutors, but after that day, it wasn't long before every one of them began to discipline me in the same way. The female tutor might have told the others that I wouldn't tattle to my parents, no matter what they did to me. Their discipline grew more refined with time, developing into a kind of art. They found ways to cause me pain without leaving telltale marks behind. Skillfully and thoroughly, they broke me in mind and body. It became impossible for me to look people in the eyes when I spoke. I was never good at holding lengthy conversations, but my responses grew shorter with every passing day. By the end, I was barely speaking at all. Even then, my suffering might have been slightly meaningful if those Spartan lessons had produced results. But no matter how hard I tried to please my tormentors, it never improved my evaluations. My father dismissed the tutors in ones and twos over my terrible results, until none remained. They cursed me to my face before they went. Some even spat onto the floor of my room before stalking out.
みちる、何か嫌なことはあったかい？
何もない。
そうか。まあ、勉強や習い事なんてできなくていいさ。健康に育ってくれれば、それだけでパパは満足だぞ。
But I was unable to fulfill even that modest hope. On my walks around the garden, I would sometimes find myself painfully short of breath, clutching my throbbing chest. My parents grew concerned. Eventually, they brought me to a big hospital for an examination. And there, I was diagnosed with a serious heart disease. The doctor's verdict: continuing to lead a normal life outside of the hospital would necessitate significant restrictions on my activities. From now on, I'd have to refrain from rigorous exercise.
穏やかに無理をせず過ごしなさい。そうでないと取り返しのつかないことになるよ。
Damn anime disease. I couldn't study or play the piano. I was never much of an athlete. Even talking with people was a struggle. And now, I'd become an invalid who couldn't even live a normal life. As I watched my parents' faces fill with disappointment, a thought occurred to me. Oh, look at that. My tutors were right all along. They told me I was a stupid, useless person who didn't even deserve to live. And they weren't wrong. They must have said it hundreds of times. Why didn't I figure this out earlier? Of course they beat me. It's only natural to treat garbage like garbage. Thinking that way made me feel a little better. I was stupid to even try to answer my parents' expectations. I wasn't cut out for that from the start. The thought freed me from my burdens. It also wiped away the meaning of my existence. Soon, my parents had lost all hope in me and devoted their nights to producing a new child. Their previously frequent visits to my room grew rare, and the time I spent alone increased. My room was always cold. I kept the curtains shut throughout the day. Little by little, I felt myself slipping away from the world outside. Nothing I did turned out right, but of course it didn't. I was defective from the start. Clumsy and awkward as I was, I soon found the one and only thing I was good at: letting time roll past in empty, uneventful silence. I would sit quietly in the corner of my room, not budging a millimeter all day, simply drawing breath. That alone became something of a specialty of mine. Even a mollusk at the bottom of the sea probably couldn't beat me at staying still. That was all I had left to be proud of. I continued to live like a clam, but biologically speaking, I was a human being. My body grew larger little by little, and in time, I stopped being a child. I was no longer allowed to shut myself up in my room doing nothing. I had to go to a place called school. But I thought you had a heart disease. The fuck? The little mermaid who lived at the bottom of the sea couldn't speak the human tongue very well. By the same token, I couldn't really communicate with the other students. It didn't help that I was a clam, not a beautiful princess. Everyone around me could live a normal life. I envied them from the bottom of my heart. I couldn't study or make friends. Moving around a little would get my heart screaming with pain. Just keeping myself breathing was about all I could manage. At first, a number of my classmates made an effort to draw me out of my solitude. But I didn't know what to say to them. Most of the time, I just nodded my head and mumbled "yeah" with a stiff expression on my face. Inevitably, the people who approached me gradually gave up, and eventually the class came to operate as if I wasn't there. That was kind of a relief, in a way. Nobody expected anything from me, so I couldn't disappoint anyone. It was as though I was made of air. Even in school, I could return to my life as a clam. I thought that was just fine. Not bad at all. My parents made sure I went to school regularly, probably thinking I'd at least have to communicate with other people there. But it wasn't rare for me to go an entire day without speaking a single word. Even when the teacher took attendance, they just glanced in my direction, not bothering to call my name. As my free time increased, I began to think pretty regularly about the point of my own existence, or rather, the pointlessness. Why was I going to school? Why was I even alive? I considered those questions at some length. Watching from afar as my classmates laughed together and chatted enthusiastically about television, sometimes I would have to fight down the urge to burst into tears. They were so close, but I was separated from them by an insurmountable wall. Even a trash can is useful to others. I was just taking up space. Why was I born in the first place? My parents had given me a cell phone, saying I'd probably need it as a student. There wasn't a single message or call recorded in the history log. The memory was clean, pure white. That phone must have been lighter than anyone else's. It was empty inside. Unless I kept a firm grip on it, it'd probably float up into the air, get pecked at by some passing bird and disappear with a pop. In the end, that was my only conclusion. A year passed in that school, then two, and that was my only constant rock of truth. On the deserted rooftop of the school building, looking up into the blue sky that stretched out over the road to school, I longed for death. I simply didn't understand the point of continuing to breathe. Living every day as a non-entity is something like walking on an icy road in bare feet. At first, it's scary, but soon enough, your nerves are paralyzed. You feel nothing at all. A good while later, when you realize this might be pretty bad, it's already far too late. There's nowhere to go from here. There's nothing to be done. You live every day of your life frozen to the ground, choking on bitter cold air. With that thought in mind, I began to head up to the roof during every recess period. Up there, the only thing separating this world from the next was a waist-high steel fence. Someday, I'll cross over that fence and become free. Someday, I'll escape into nothingness. Comforted by those thoughts, I waited patiently for the right timing. I waited for someone, God or whoever else, to send a sign just for me. I'd wrap my arms around my knees and sit, telling myself maybe today would be the day. Maybe today, the clouds would part for a ray of light, and a voice from above would say, "Come, it's time." I would stare closely at the trains barreling past the station, wondering if the sign might flash past in the window of a carriage. But instead, I just sat by myself on that roof. No matter how long and patiently I waited, I never saw my signals, or any signals. Nobody whispered the words in my ear. In the end, I was all alone. Just like I was everywhere else. Every place was the same to me. I was in the corner of the room where I'd been beaten terribly. I was deep at the bottom of the sea, where no light could reach me. I was at the end of the world, surrounded on all sides by silent walls of stone. God must have been busy with something else. Otherwise, why wouldn't he fly over to me and speak the words? One day, when I went to the rooftop as usual, I found a girl who had just, in that very moment, crossed over the fence. She was standing boldly on the very edge of the building, staring straight ahead. And when I saw her, one powerful thought filled my mind. It's not fair. After all my anguish internal debating, all my suffering, all my waiting, I couldn't get myself over that fence. Why did this girl get to make it look so easy? That girl was going to kill herself. She was going to leap off the roof, fall onto the concrete below, and end her life. It was obvious enough from the way she stood there, straddling the border between roof and sky, arms outstretched like wings to catch the wind. Seemed almost to be enjoying herself. It wasn't the sort of pose you could make if you cared about your own life. Anyway, it wasn't fair. What did she get to die when I had to live? I didn't have the first idea who she was, but it just wasn't fair.
ずるい。
I was trying to shout as loudly as I could, but what came out of my mouth was a weak, spiritless sound, like the rasping of a broken down old accordion.
ずるい。ずるいよ。死んだら嫌だよ。ずるいもん。
It probably didn't help that I wasn't used to conversation, but my voice just wasn't coming out right. The girl quietly stared down at the ground far below, not even noticing my presence behind her. She seemed to be looking for the exact moment to jump. Maybe God had already given her the signal.
ねえ。ずるいってば。ダメ。 ダメなの。
Someone's going to kill themselves and that's the first thing you think about? God, something is definitely wrong with you, Michiru. I called out again and again, but she didn't seem to hear. Maybe I no longer even existed in this world. Maybe I'd slipped into some alternate plane of existence long ago, and was just peeking into this world through an interdimensional one-way mirror. She ignored me so completely that it seemed possible.
ねえ、聞いてよ。聞いてよ。
I called out to her. My voice choked with tears, but even then, she didn't turn around.
そうだな。よし、せーのでいくか。うん。せーの。ね
え、聞いてよ。
The girl's body went into spasms of shock. She looked like a wild animal with its fur standing on end.
危な！びっくりした。落ちるとこだった。
And then, at long last, she timidly turned around to face me.
誰？
ねえ、聞いてよ。聞いて。
え？なんで泣いてるの？っていうか、いつからいたの？
ずるい。死ぬとかずるい。
ずるい？え？どういうこと？
My tear-stained face must have been a real sight. The girl lifted herself over the fence and returned to the side. She was wearing the same uniform as me. Unsurprisingly, she was clearly from my school.
あんた、すっごいひどい顔してる。拭いたら？
She handed me her handkerchief, and I dried my tears. Nothing like that had ever happened to me before. It was embarrassing, but it made me sort of happy. I didn't really know what to do next. She actually has a sprite.
で、何？用？
That was kind of a hard question, actually. I just didn't want her to die. And it's not like I was about to lecture her on treasuring her life or anything. I was just scared by the thought of someone escaping this world while I was still hesitating on the edge.
その。
うん。何？
The girl watched me as if observing some rare species of animal. I didn't have the first idea where to begin or how to explain myself. So after thinking it over for quite some time, I chose the simplest option.
はじめまして。松島みちるです。
このタイミングで挨拶？しかもそれだけ？終わり？それを言うためだけに？
Screwed up after all, huh? Guess I can't even manage a normal conversation anymore. The thought made me genuinely sad. I couldn't find my usual numb indifference. It felt like a harsh reminder that I didn't belong in this world any longer. God, Michiru is such a Miss Gloomy Gloom. Watching as I slumped my shoulders dejectedly, the girl burst into laughter. And although I didn't have any real evidence either way, I didn't feel like she was mocking me. It was relieved, happy laughter. The sort of laughter I hadn't heard in a long time. I wasn't sure what to do, so I just stood there quietly as she laughed and laughed. But no matter how patiently I waited, she just wouldn't stop. Much the opposite. After a while, she threw herself down on the ground and began to roll around. Her roars of amusement even louder than before. God, you're also weird. Watching her rolling around like that started to get me in a kind of a silly mood myself. The moment I noticed a little giggle slipping out of my mouth, the dam seemed to break. I began laughing so loudly I was surprised myself.
笑ってる。何それ。
The two of us laughed for a very, very long time. Long enough that the color of the sky changed above us. Long enough that I could almost believe whole seasons had passed by. When her laughter finally came to an end, the girl rose shakily to her feet, both hands clutching her belly. She opened her mouth to speak, but at first could only manage a few high-pitched little giggles.
死ぬ気なくなっちゃったなこれ。
So that was it after all. The girl had been planning to die. I knew that much from the start. But when she came out and said it so bluntly, I was still slightly taken aback.
バカらしい。ああ笑えた。こうなるとあなた命の恩人だね。私の命の恩人でしょ？うん。ありがとう。
I didn't deserve to be thanked by anyone. Why was she saying this to me?
なんで？なんで？え、むしろなぜ泣く？よしよし、落ち着け落ち着け。どう？なんで？
The girl wrapped a hand around my neck and drew me close. After briefly petting my head, she hugged me tightly against her.
あなたは本当に変な子だね。でもそういう子嫌いじゃないぞ。とか言ったりしてな。
Her chest had a sweet, milky odor. I don't think she's actually saying that's how I like my women. It's like, I don't mind guys like that, is what she said in Japanese. I don't know why the localization made it seem like she's lesbian. Weird. I never smelled another girl's body like this before. I didn't know what to do. About anything, really. It was all too much. My mind just couldn't keep up.
そうだな。友達になろうか。うん、友達になろう。何しろ命の恩人だもんね。これはもう親友だな、むしろ。そうだよ、親友だよ。親友じゃん？親友？よろしくね、親友。よろしくお願いします。
I'd convinced myself there was no place for me in this world. But when I felt the life pulsing in her chest, I found myself able to breathe easily again. She smelled sweet, and her body was soft and warm. I couldn't remember the last time I'd been so close to another person. Contact with other people had always seemed so scary. And it really was scary, to be honest. But at the same time, how can I put this? More than anything else, it felt like someone was gently tickling my heart. I returned home that day feeling as if I'd been reborn. Probably because of my unusually cheerful expression, my parents struck up a conversation with me for the first time in a while. I wasn't able to explain very well, but I did tell them I'd gotten to know somebody at school. I didn't say I made a friend, let alone a best friend. After all, there was still a chance it had all been a delusion on my part. Maybe tomorrow, everything would be right back to the way it was. That would be the way too sad, right? Better not to get my hopes up. My parents said, I see. Good for you. Mixed emotions on their faces. Not that it bothered me much. That night, I ate my dinner slightly earlier than usual, and slipped into bed slightly before my normal time. For once, I actually wanted tomorrow to arrive a little faster. But in school the next day, I found everything the same. It wasn't like I had changed after all. I was still just myself. Nobody in my class even tried to talk to me. That morning, I thought I might be able to keep a bit of a smile on my face. But in the end, my expression was gloomier than ever. Maybe that girl I met the day before was a sign from God. A little cosmic meddling to keep me from killing myself at the wrong time. Could have just said so from the start then. I nearly misunderstood. Nearly thought I'd found some place where I belonged. Nearly thought it was okay for me to live. Nearly started thinking like a normal person. That was a close one. I almost forgot what my tutors taught me so thoroughly. Yeah, that had to be it. I didn't have a best friend. That was all a dream. Ah, dreams aren't worth it, are they? You end up feeling really tired when you wake up. After school, I stood from my seat before anyone else and beeline for the exit. For now, I just wanted to get out of that place. But the rooftop had become frightening, so I couldn't go back there. I wanted to run away, but I couldn't figure out where to go. All I knew was that I didn't want to be where I was. When I slid open the door and dashed out into the hallway, there was a harsh thump and everything went black for a moment. In my haste, I'd run headlong into someone.
ごめんなさい。
Somehow squeezing out the words, I turned to run. But before I could take another step, someone firmly seized me by the back of my uniform. I reflexively dropped my bag and shielded my head against the blow that would follow. This was a deeply ingrained habit from my childhood. When the tutors hit my head strongly, the nausea and dizziness would sometimes last for hours. If nothing else, I wanted to avoid that. But the violence I feared didn't arrive. On the contrary, my captor bent down and picked up the bag I'd thrown to the ground.
相変わらず変な人だね、松島みちる。え？
It was the first time in a while somebody had bothered to call me that. A silly thought flashed through my head. Oh, so that's what my name sounds like.
ねえ、お腹空いたからどむんない？おごるから。
Hell is Dom Dom.
どう？なる？
In front of my eyes was the girl from my dream. I was definitely awake, but somehow I was dreaming.
断ったりしないよね。親友だもんね。この後何か用事でもあるの？
I couldn't get myself to speak properly, so I shook my head vigorously from left to right. No, nothing at all. And I kept right on doing it, until at last the girl reached out and caught my cheeks in her hands to hold me still.
わかったわかった。それじゃあ行こう。お腹空いちゃった。
She led me by the hand, and for the first time in my life, I entered a so-called fast food restaurant. The complicated menu and colorful photographs left me lightheaded, and I didn't have the first idea how to order. After stewing in confusion and panic for a long while, I tugged on her sleeve.
あなた、本当にこういうところ初めてなの？
I quietly nodded my head. She just watched me for a moment, then laughed in amusement. A little later, a small tray sat on our surprisingly cramped little table, bearing the hamburger and fries the girl ordered for me. It felt like she was really close. Eating a meal with my face so near to someone else's made me feel kinda nervous. I could feel my stomach churning. What was I gonna do if I threw up?
あなた、隣のクラスだったんだね。こんなに面白い子がいるなんて全然知らなかった。ん？どうかした？
これ写真と全然違う。ぺたんこ。
ハンバーガー？本当に面白いね。
うん。え、面白い？
うん、面白い。そうだ、あなたクラスメートに何て呼ばれてるか知ってる？
私何か言われてるの？
そう、言われてる。しかも悪口。幽霊って呼ばれてんの。笑っちゃうでしょ？なんでよって思ったから、そんなこと言うのよしなさいって言っておいたわよ。
She chattered happily on, swinging a fry back and forth. I had no idea how to reply. I mean, I was surprised to know they bothered to badmouth me, but I was even more shocked she had told them to stop. Why was this person being so nice to me?
しかもあなたお嬢らしいじゃん。だからってファーストフード初めてってちょっと浮世離れしすぎじゃない？
お嬢？
そう、お嬢。ところでさ、携帯ある？赤外線やろうよ、赤外線。
God, you know this this game was made not in the current era.
赤外。
I don't know if the kids nowadays even know what IR is. It's like infrared.
わかった。それは今度にしよう。ひとまず、今日は食べなさい食べなさい。ここは私のおごりだから。そのぺったんこたーんとお食べ。どうせ私にはこれぐらいしかおごれないんだし。
I picked up the miserably flat little hamburger from its bed of wrapping paper and took a large bite. To my surprise, a strong and vibrant flavor instantly filled my mouth. It might not have looked anything like the photo, but it actually tasted really good. I don't know, I think in Japan, their presentation of fast food is still pretty good.
どうだ、美味しいじゃろ？
美味しい。
なんで泣いてんの？謎なんだけど。美味しくて泣いてんの？それは大げさでしょ。ゾウさんも大喜びだな、こりゃ。
I don't know what the hell Mr. Elephant has to do with anything, but okay. The hamburger was warm, the girl in front of me was kind, and I couldn't stop crying. Not surprisingly, she looked a little astounded, but even so she laughed. No matter what I did, she'd laugh. After that, she started coming by every day after school, inviting me along to all sorts of different places. I guess she must have found my complete cluelessness kind of entertaining. One day it was karaoke, the next an arcade. The day after that, something else entirely. I got to see a lot of new places and experience a lot of new things.
ねえねえ、ここに書いてある初プリって何？
She laughed when I asked that question too. More than anything else, she was a girl who laughed a lot. And the places I went with her were always glittering with vivid rainbows of light. When I went back home after we said goodbye, my room looked stale and dismal by comparison. It was like falling into a broken down, monochrome world. More and more, I spent my time impatiently counting down the hours until our next outing, wishing she'd swoop down and take me out of there. I remember getting off the train with her at some station I'd never visited before, and buying matching pencil boxes in a store I'd never known existed. After anguishing over my choice for dozens of minutes, I bought her a small hairpin as a present, and got a pouch in return. We traded hair scrunchies, ate ice cream together. The days rolled by like one unbroken dream. Her email address and phone number were recorded in my cell phone. I was too scared to send her a message or dial her number, but for some reason, just looking at those characters on the screen would bring a smile to my face. One day, the two of us were on the rooftop after school, gazing leisurely out at the setting sun. The girl spoke to me in a quiet voice as the wind blew through her hair.
みちるは聞いてこないよね。
何が？
どうして飛び降りようとしてたかってこと。
She was always smiling, so I was taken aback to see her looking so serious all of a sudden. And more importantly, that completely unexpected question left me thoroughly flustered.
だって死にたかったんでしょ？それが全てじゃない。それ以上何を聞くの？
What do you mean, what else would you ask? What about the reason why she wants to die?
そりゃそうだね。飛び降りの理由なんてそれしかないもんね。みちるは本当に変な子だ。
そうかな。そんなことないけど。
私はね、いろいろな人にいろいろなことを聞かれるんだ。進路がどう、彼氏がどう、バイトがどう、手の傷がどう、薬がどう、中に出すとか、もうよくわかんないよ。もっとシンプルな世界で生きていたいと思う。
I mean, isn't that just because your choices are kinda extreme? Girl we don't even know name of? She still hasn't told her name. I didn't really understand what she was saying, so I listened very carefully. I thought, I hoped, that if I listened carefully enough, I'd be able to pick up at least a little.
結局さ、人間って一人だよね。私のことを心から大事にしてくれる人なんてどこにもいないんだ。 最後にはみんな消えていくよね。
I mean, I guess when you're younger, it's easier to think that way. Not having someone you cherish, especially if you don't come from a very, like, heartwarming family that makes you want to think about them. I came from a family that's like that, but nowadays I'm trying to get rid of my mindset about how, yeah, there's just no one that thinks about us from the bottom of their heart. Because there must be someone out there. At the very least for me, I think it might be my sister. I wanted to say it wasn't true, but I couldn't manage to speak.
嫌われたくないな。だったら先に私から嫌ってやりたい。私から先に消えてしまいたい。なんてね。
Damn, that's very negative. If you don't want to be hated, like, don't do something that makes you hated in the first place. Don't hate first, the fuck? It's like very, very weird way of, like, trying to face an issue.
あ、ごめんね。行かなきゃ。
いってらっしゃい。
みちれ、
何？
好きだよ。
With those words, she playfully pretend kissed me on the cheek. My face went red as a lobster, and I made a strange little awa noise.
冗談。またね。
The evening sun was just sinking below the horizon as she left, still laughing. I just stood there for a while as darkness settled over the rooftop. That cell phone was always ringing. I didn't like it. Every time she was called off somewhere, she'd be quiet and subdued for a long time afterward. Her smiles looked forced. I was worried somebody might be doing cruel things to her, but I wasn't able to ask. Sometimes she'd notice the concern in my eyes and laugh. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. But I knew it wasn't. It wasn't okay at all. It was a complete coincidence, but I'd seen a pregnancy test fall out of her bag when she dropped it. And I knew she'd been absent for a while after that. I was afraid asking her something would pop the bubble, destroy what we had, and because of that fear, I stayed silent. Even then, I knew I was being a coward. She had pulled me up from the bottom of the sea. Shouldn't I return the favor? Take her hand, like she did for me? The question tormented me for a very long time. But there was no way I could do what she had done. I was still a piece of trash. It was only thanks to her that I could laugh a little. It was only thanks to her that I had found a little happiness. I couldn't allow myself to misunderstand. This was a temporary world. A dream I'd wake up from eventually. Lingering alone on the roof, I gripped the cold metal handrail tightly. I still didn't have the courage to make the short journey to the other side of that fence. In that respect, too, she was an amazing person. Don't call someone who actually tries to suicide an amazing person, Jesus Christ. She had so much that I didn't, even the courage to end her own life. It's not courage, damn you. That is something that I'm going to actually be very angry about if you actually think that's courage. For a few days after answering that phone call, she didn't attend school. I was consumed by the fear something bad might have happened to her. Just like when I was a child, I knelt by my windowsill and whispered countless prayers.
神様、どうか守ってあげてください。今まで通り、彼女が笑っていられるようにしてください。
The only time you'd pray is when you wish for something, huh, Michiru? This is why I don't believe in God. Because you only ever rely on Him when there's something you need. At school, I would hesitate in my classroom at the end of the day, thinking she might appear in the doorway like always or drag me off to play. But I was a ghost in that class. I didn't dare make myself conspicuous. I reluctantly trudged up to the roof and waited for her. But no matter how patiently I waited, she never came. There was nothing but the steady passage of time. I did nothing but draw breath in a monochrome world. One day, somebody called my cell phone from a withheld number. I was scared to pick it up, but thinking it just might be her, I gathered up all the courage I could muster and pressed the answer button.
もしもし。
On the other side of the line, I heard someone breathing harshly, as if in pain. Maybe it was nothing more than a random prank call from a stranger. But in my mind's eye, I saw her on the other end, the person I cared about more than anyone else in the world. And I remembered her words on the roof that day. Back then, I wasn't able to give her a proper response. I'd left so many things unsaid. I decided to convey those feelings to whoever this might be.
どうして一人だなんて思うの？ちゃんとあなたのこと友達だって思って大切にしてる人がいるよ。それなのにどうして一人でどこかに行こうとするの？あなたは置いていかれるのがどんなに辛いか分かってないんだ。だから勝手にどこかに行こうとしちゃうんだ。
Do you know how it is to be left behind? I thought that this was the first time you ever met a friend.
失うことは当たり前だよ。誰かに嫌われることだって特別なことじゃない。
Yeah, I'm surprised about how Michiru is actually being logical right now.
私、あなたのこと大好きだよ。だからどこにも行かないで。もしあなたが自分のことを幸せだと思うなら、これから幸せになろう。ここに戻ってきて、これからまた一緒に生きよう。
The person on the other end of the line hung up without a single word. It felt as though I'd been abandoned, left behind. I squeezed my cell phone tightly in my hand. Even now, I don't know who called me that day. The next time I saw my friend was more than 2 weeks later. By that point, even sitting through class had become unbearably agonizing. I would spend the entire day on the roof waiting for her. And one day, completely out of the blue, she appeared before me once again. I couldn't say a word. There wasn't a trace remaining of the girl who had always laughed so happily. Her school uniform was tattered and torn. Her hair looked like it had been hacked at with a knife. Her face, too, was full of bruises. Numerous wounds, as cruel as anything that the tutors had inflicted on me, were openly visible even in the most conspicuous of places. Something terrible must have happened. Something so terrible I didn't even want to imagine it. And it must have lasted a horribly long time. Just like that, there were tears in my eyes. God didn't protect her. I couldn't protect her.
大丈夫。これは私が望んだことだから。彼に捨てられたくなくてしたことだから。
I hadn't asked the question, but she answered it anyway. Those clipped, vague words weren't enough for me to understand what had really happened to her. But I knew she was lying. I knew many sad, horrible things must have happened. Things she couldn't possibly have wanted to happen. I slowly approached her, then wrapped my arms around her trembling body. It surprised even me. I hadn't expected myself to do any such thing.
ありがとう。みちるは優しいね。
そんなことない。
そんなことあるよ。あなたは優しい子だよ。ねえ、噂は聞いてるでしょ。あれってその通りなんだ。まったくバカだと思うよ。笑っていいよ。
I don't know what the hell the rumors are. Michiru's like monologue or perspective never even told us anything. There's no foreshadowing about this. In the classroom, my friend had become the subject of rumors. My classmates said she'd gotten to know a man decades older than her over the internet. A man with a wife and children. They said he treated her like his mistress. They said something about photos of her and that man getting scattered around the internet. about him making her have sex with other men. One morning, there had been a naked photo of her taped on top of my desk. I silently tore it off, shoved the paper into a trash can, and immediately left the classroom, slamming the door behind me as loudly as I could. But none of it mattered to me. No matter what sort of thing she'd done, it didn't change the fact that she was my best friend.
バカじゃないよ。私はバカだけど。
そうだね。こんな私と仲良くしてくれるなんてバカかもね。
そんなことないもん。
私、学校で嫌われてるんだ。友達もいないの。でもね、誰も相手にしてくれないからあなたと友達になったわけじゃないからね。あなたのことがいいなって思ったから友達になったんだからね。それだけは本当。でも信じてくれないよね。こんな私だもんね。
I find that hard to believe, girl whose name I still don't know. I think you probably see that she also wanted to kill herself, that's why you befriend her the first time. I wanted to say, of course I know that, but my voice failed me. It felt as though a chunk of cardboard had wedged itself in my throat. I couldn't force out even a tiny squeak.
私はミチルのこと親友だってちゃんと思ってる。ごめんね、こんなに汚れた友達で。こんなんで
Oh, sorry.
本当にごめんね。
I wanted to tell her that she wasn't filthy, but I couldn't say a word. All I could do was hug her tightly.
私、彼のことが好き。彼がしろって言えばどんなことでもした。奥さんと別れてくれるなんて、そんなの最初から嘘だって分かってた。
Man, you're dumb.
だけどそれでもよかったの。子供ができた時だって迷惑がかかるから病院だってちゃんと一人で行ったよ。
もういいよ。話さなくていい。大丈夫だよ。
他の人としろって言われても頑張った。相手が何人でも何回でも頑張った。でももう限界。だってあの人はもう私のこと好きじゃないから。
I mean, did he even ever love you in the first place? Didn't he only wanted to have sex with like a teenager or something like that? She gave me another pretend kiss on my cheek. I closed my eyes and returned the gesture. Watching me, she laughed for just a moment. And then she slipped out of my arms. Scraps of her uniform danced in the wind like feathers blown loose from the wings of a bird in flight. She put her hands on the fence and swung herself over to the other side, graceful as a dancer.
みちる、もう私限界。あの人が私に興味のない世界になんて、あの人が存在しない世界になんていたくない。
What an idiot. Sadly, as much as I say that, there are a lot of people who think this way. Straddling the border between roof and sky, standing on the line that divided this world from the next, she spoke to me. A single thought ran through my dazed brain. It's just like the first time we met.
先に行くね。
I wanted to say, I'll come with you. You're not the only one, you know. I'm not interested in a world without you in it. So if you're going, I'll come along. Just don't leave me behind. Don't leave me here alone. I wanted to tell her, you joked that you loved me once, but I really do love you. That's the reason I'm still alive today. I wanted her to know, but I couldn't speak or move. My body felt like it was encased in concrete. I couldn't lift a single finger.
さよなら、みちる。
I wanted to say the words, we're best friends, aren't we? Let's die together. But instead, I just watched her in silence like a complete idiot. See? I was right. I'm the stupid one after all. I mean, would you really consider her, like, do you really think she considers you her best friend if she actually, you know, suicides in front of you? I personally don't think so. Didn't she want to not inconvenience anyone? I guess not. I didn't know what to do. I just cowered. And then I tried to scramble over the rail to see her, to see the end. But I couldn't do it. No matter what, I couldn't get myself over that fence. I could feel my feet giving way underneath me. I couldn't even keep myself upright. Why hadn't I died with her? I was right from the start. There was never a place for me here. Screwed up big this time, didn't I? Shouldn't have let myself think I could become a normal person. Shouldn't have thought I could find something like happiness. In the end, it vanishes. The bubble pops. In that case, it would have been better never to have got my hopes up in the first place. Just like my parents stopped expecting anything of me, I should have stopped expecting anything from the world. I heard the wail of a siren and a chorus of horrified screams from far away, and then I fainted. My body still twined awkwardly around that fence. Just before I lost consciousness, I heard a sound like the click of a television set falling silent. I don't know if it was a hallucination or not, but I heard it clearly. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed. It seemed I had been unconscious for quite a long time. Normally, there should have been police waiting at my bed to question me, but Dad took care of all that. Probably less out of concern for me than out of his desire to keep this troublesome situation from dragging on. I thought they'd discharge me soon enough, but I discovered that my chronic chest pain had grown dramatically more intense. My body was no longer physically capable of enduring a normal life. The doctor said the shock of losing a close friend may well have advanced the progression of the disease, but I didn't really know if that was true. Either way, man, I hate this stupid ass anime disease. Either way, the pain in my heart was now so agonizing it could at times render me unconscious. My parents had more or less abandoned me, but I guess this miserable new development managed to move them to pity. They decided to send me to America for a heart transplant operation. Personally, I wouldn't have minded just dying, but it seemed like those two wanted to feel like caring parents, so I decided I might as well go along with it. Things moved along behind my back. Large amounts of money traded hands, although I didn't know the details. They didn't tell me much of anything about the donor, and I wasn't particularly interested either. All they said was I'd be receiving the heart of a brain-dead girl of the same age as me. I'm sure it must have been a really big, complicated operation, but since that day on the rooftop, I've been living like an empty husk. Can't really say it felt like much of an ordeal. They carried me off on an airplane to a place where I couldn't understand a word anyone was saying. The doctor put me under anesthesia and I fell asleep. Before I knew it, I was right back in Japan. It really did seem to happen in the blink of an eye. I didn't have time to feel much of anything. My procedure apparently went about as smoothly as possible. They'd pumped me full of immunosuppressants to prevent my body from rejecting the new heart. But I recovered without any of the sickness that often resulted as a side effect. My reaction to this news was indifferent at best. It didn't even feel particularly strange, having another person's organ inside my body. Sometimes I almost doubted whether they'd really operated on me. Of course, just touching the scar on my chest was enough to convince myself it had to be true. But really, what difference did it make either way? The lump of flesh inside me constantly thumping away was different from the one that had been in there yesterday. That was all. Nobody was going to care. Nothing important had changed. My doctor celebrated my remarkable recovery from the surgery as a miracle. So enthusiastic you might have thought my good fortune was his own. My parents had relieved expression on their faces as well. Expressions that seemed to read, "Now we won't have to worry ourselves about this girl anymore." The many months I had spent in various hospitals came to an end, and I began to recuperate at home. That was when the first signs of the change began to appear. Apparently, I was saying uncharacteristic things to my parents. I was talking and behaving in ways I usually wouldn't, almost as if I'd become a completely different person. My parents were incredulous at first, half suspecting some kind of an elaborate prank. But as they knew, I wasn't exactly a practical joker by nature. I wasn't consciously aware of any of this. My alternate personality came at the price of gaps in my memory. Maybe I was sleepwalking, or turning into a different person without even realizing it. A doctor diligently studied my brain activity and asked me all sorts of questions, but in the end, he could only offer a vague conclusion. The phenomenon can't be explained by modern medicine. Ultimately, the adults decided that the powerful psychological impact of losing a friend in front of my eyes had led to changes in my personality. But again, I didn't really care either way. I responded with my usual, "Oh, that's so." The gaps in my memories became frequent, and as time passed, they grew longer, harder to ignore. The other me who showed up in these chunks of lost time seemed surprisingly competent. From what I gathered, she was much more sociable than I was, and a lot better at schoolwork as well. One night, I noticed dinner was a little extravagant. Dad smiled across the table and told me it was a reward for trying so hard at my studies lately. It was kind of a strange experience, but I didn't really mind. I mean, if things were going smoothly, who cared if I remembered doing the things I was being praised for or not? As this pattern continued, I found myself acquiring a number of friends as well. Of course, I'd gotten to know them during the blank spaces in my memories, so I didn't really know what sort of people they were. Without any effort on my part, lots of people began greeting me in a friendly tone on the road to school. After saying hi, they'd usually ask, "What's wrong? Not feeling so good today?" Seems like they saw the usual me as the sick Michiru, and the person who showed up in those blank periods of lost time as the normal, cheerful Michiru.
どうした？具合が悪そうだな。
I was lying down in my room one evening when Dad stopped by to check up on me.
らしくないぞ。いつもの元気な道を見せてごらん。
Not knowing what else to do, I forced a strained smile onto my face.
大丈夫。明日には元気になっているさ。今日のお前とはさよならだな。
Smiling, Dad left the room and closed the door behind him. And all of a sudden, an image flashed into my head. An image of a girl frozen in flight. It was the girl who had left me so abruptly. My best friend, who had abandoned this world. Her final goodbye echoed inside my head, rebounding off the walls of my skull. The word was terribly sharp. Every time it clanged against the bone, it felt as though someone was drilling me open from the inside. Trembling with fear and pain, I dove into my bed in search of refuge. Greasy sweat broke out on my forehead. I swallowed a handful of the sleeping pills my doctor had prescribed, pulled the blanket over my head, and squeezed my eyes shut. If I can get past this, I'll become the cheerful Michiru again. I can't break down now. I silently repeated those words to myself. And soon enough, drowsiness wrapped me up in a thick, sticky cocoon, blanket and all. Finally, I'll be able to sleep. I'll pull through after all. It was just as those thoughts were running hazily through my mind, just as I stood on the border between reality and dreams, when I heard the unfamiliar voice from outside my blanket.
大丈夫だよ。安心して。心配しなくていいんだよ。
I didn't understand in the slightest how this was supposed to be alright. Hearing the voice of some strange woman as I tried to fall asleep really didn't seem to qualify. The least you could do was change the VA, damn it.
私が君の弱さを引き受けてあげる。これからずっと一緒なんだから。うん。親友だろ？
The instant I heard those words, I felt my heart pound violently. A sharp, white-hot pain spread from my chest throughout my entire body, as if traveling through my blood vessels.
親友なんて言わないで。私の親友一人しかいない。一人しかいらない。
I remembered the doctor offhandedly mentioning a phenomenon known as cellular memory. In rare cases, patients receiving heart transplants had seemed to inherit aspects of the previous owner's tastes or memories. He didn't seem to believe in the idea, But maybe it was real. Maybe that had happened to me. No, this wasn't anything so minor. The former owner's entire personality had slipped inside me, complete and distinct from my own. And now she was talking to me, declaring herself my best friend. I wasn't about to put up with that. Another best friend was the last thing I wanted.
あなたなんて大嫌い。勝手なこと言わないで。
Throwing off the covers, my pulse pounding in fear of my own body, I shouted at the disembodied voice.
大丈夫だよ。私が助けてあげるから。助けてなんて欲しくない。私を助けられるのはあの子だけなの。
I couldn't even tell if this was reality or some insane nightmare. My terror escalated into frenzy. I ripped out clumps of my own hair, bit my own arms, and kicked things all over the room until my feet bled. But it wasn't enough. I grabbed the box cutter from my desk, grasped it tightly in my hands, and listened carefully, trying to figure out where the voice was coming from. The voice was the cause of this pain. It flowed through my body with the blood thumping out of my heart, bringing agony with it. I had to get that voice out of my body. I had to, or I was going to go crazy. With that thought, I cut at my wrist with the blade, trying to drain the voice out of me along with my blood. But no matter how my arm bled, the voice remained securely inside my body. You know, I could help you, Michiru. You just need to pinpoint your heart. God. In that case, I had no choice. I needed to uproot it directly. I needed to get rid of that foreign entity pulsing away inside me. I pointed the blade at my own chest and stabbed as hard as I could. It wasn't the sharpest blade, but it broke the skin easily enough. Slowly, it gouged its way through my flesh. Just a little further and I'd reach the heart. The invasion would be over soon. I'd be rid of the voice. I felt relief washing over me. But just then, I smelt that distinctive mixture of cigarettes and strange women, and realized that my father had entered the room.
どうしたミチル。なぜだ。
Before I knew it, my room had become a disaster scene. The shattered and torn remnants of my belongings stained dark red with splashes of fresh blood. The box cutter fell from my hands and hit the ground with a dull thunk. The sound abruptly brought me back to reality. That familiar face was so contorted that he looked like an entirely different person. I had to smile, had to reassure him. But different words came out of my mouth.
ねえパパ。私、狂っちゃったの？
Dad hugged me closely for the first time in many years. But it was very different from that girl's embrace. Even though he was holding me close, I could feel a vast chasm looming between us. That very night, I was admitted to a new hospital. Not that I had any choice in the matter. It was the kind of building that has iron bars on every window, even though you could only crack them open a few centimeters away anyway. It was very quiet there. All of the patients were tranquil and sedate. Sometimes I felt as though I'd wandered into some forgotten corner of the afterlife. They told me that people suffering from illnesses of the mind were gathered here, but I never saw anyone thrash around violently or scream and rant at phantoms. Everyone had a content, vaguely dopey little smile on their faces. For the most part, they passed the days quietly watching television. I mean, they're drugged up. There were times when I found those constant, unchanging smiles frightening, but I got the idea soon enough. Basically, it was a place where you could live without getting tangled up in your emotions. You could pass the time peacefully, only thinking about pleasant things. To put the opposite spin on it, in that place, you weren't allowed to think about anything else. When they let us outside for a walk, the metal shackles that usually bound my legs were removed. In exchange, they looped a rope around around our waists. All the patients were tied together on that one length of rope, like children pretending to be a train, even though we were all grown up now. I always thought that was kind of silly. This must be one of the more expensive hospitals because in a real life sanatorium, yeah, you wouldn't be seeing this. You'd be seeing a lot more crazy people doing crazy stuff. The medicine they gave me there made my mind feel pleasantly clear. The other personality didn't emerge. That eerie voice didn't crawl through my veins like a swarm of insects. It was like living inside a tightly closed music box. Boring, but very peaceful. I stayed in there for a long time. I didn't talk with anyone. For the most part, I just stood quietly by the wall, trying not to stand out, trying to shrink myself down to the point where the world would overlook me. But one day, I caught my chains on the leg of a chair and tripped to the ground. That had never happened before, so I wasn't sure what to do. Fortunately, no one insulted me or yelled angrily. Instead, a few patients nearby put their hands to their mouths and giggled softly in amusement. I liked hearing that sound, and lying there on the ground, an idea occurred to me. Maybe if I fell on purpose, I could make people laugh again. The next day, I tripped again. Again, the people who noticed laughed a little. The day after that, I deliberately spilled a glass of water, and once more, I heard the pleasant sound of laughter. Emboldened by my success, I spoke.
勝手にこぼれるなんて変なコップ。
More people laughed than before. Their voices were warm and gentle. I'd found a way to make myself useful. By devoting myself to clowning around, I could at least make others smile. From that day on, I acted out a sillier version of myself, an exaggerated, funny caricature of me, and I sustained myself on a sugary sweet diet of laughter. Alright then, from now on, I'd go with this way of life. The pretending didn't bother me. It was worth it to do something for other people. It was worth it to have something to live for. Nobody had appreciated me before because I wanted them to like the real me. Problem was, the real me wasn't any good, so I might as well just pretend. All I had to do was act out the most convenient role, force out the most convenient emotions, become someone who put a smile on people's faces. Even if that meant the real me disappeared entirely, I didn't care. I was a little anxious about whether someone as stupid as me could even act convincingly, but I had no choice but to try. Among the patients, I gained a niche as the weird but funny girl. As I grew into the role, I became more lively. In time, the doctors decided I was on my way to a full recovery and politely ejected me from the hospital. I'd lost my place in the world, but my parents soon found me another. Apparently they'd heard somewhere or other about this special school that only gathered students with complicated circumstances. I was enrolled in Mahama Academy soon after my return. I kept right on playing the clown in this school. I thought it would be nice to keep everyone laughing. And in fact, that's just how things turned out. The days rolled past pleasantly enough, for the most part. But every once in a while, I'd abruptly remember that this too was nothing but an artificial make-believe world. When everyone laughed together, I wasn't smiling from the heart. And over time, my uncertainty grew. I didn't want to lose what I'd found here, but I didn't want to grow dependent on it. The more I pretended to be someone I wasn't, the less I understood what I wanted to do. Did an imposter like me really belong here in the first place? It felt like I was living in an antlion's pit. There was nowhere else for me to go, no way out of the rut. All I could do was struggle not to fall.
それが私なの。
Having delivered her lengthy story in one uninterrupted sitting, Michiru finally pauses, her face lined with fatigue.
薬で自分の知らない自分を抑えて人の顔色を伺って生きているのが私。そんな私を抱いてくれてありがとう。
Now, if I had the choice, I probably wouldn't do it, Michiru.
ごっこでも恋人のふりでもしてくれてありがとう。私幸せなのかもって勘違いしそうになっちゃったけど、全部嘘だって分かってるし大丈夫。ユージに抱きしめてもらってる時、キスしてもらってる時、今が終わらなければいいのにってずっと考えてた。でも終わっちゃうんだよね。いつかは離れちゃう。怖いね、それって。
Scratching my head, I search for the words Michiru needs to hear. They've proved surprisingly easy to find. What you need right now isn't this fatalistic pessimism. It's medical treatment. A visit to the hospital would be a good start. Your problem's too complex to face on your own. For now, let the professionals figure it out. And after they've found the cause, work slowly and surely toward getting better. I think I understand the general outline of the situation. The memories of her organ donor must have influenced Michiru's mind. Or so she thinks at least. Not exactly a common phenomenon, but apparently not entirely unprecedented. Whatever the case may be, what the girl needs is appropriate treatment in an appropriate setting.
うん。どうしても病院に行かなくちゃダメ。
Yeah, I'd strongly recommend it. I doubt they'll keep you there longer than a week for an examination like this, and I'm worried about you.
心配か。本当なら嬉しいな。
Why would I lie? I didn't dislike that make-believe game of yours. I probably could have found another way to kill time. But playing around with you was, well, enjoyable.
本当に
I'm not lying. How many times do you want to make me say the same exact thing?
ごめんなさい。だって私といて愉快って思ってくれるなんて嬉しくて。
I don't want you to disappear on me, Michiru. I'd find that unpleasant.
困る？どうして？
This is seriously the last time I'm going to repeat myself. Because the time I spent with you wasn't half bad.
うん。
I take Michiru by the shoulders and look her straight in the eyes. You're living in the present, Michiru. Don't let yourself get caught up in the past. You can't fix it. What's done can't be undone, but the future is still yours to shape. Incredibly obvious, yes, but it doesn't hurt to keep that in mind. Right now, your future is on the line. You need to take control of it. With that said, I kiss Michiru briefly on the lips. She turns down her face in embarrassment and hesitates for a moment, studying the floor as if deciding which words to pick up off the ground.
ありがとう、ユージ。
In the end, she chooses extremely simple ones. Extremely simple, but not half bad. A very respectable choice, actually.
ユージがそう言うなら、明日にでも検査に行く。早い方がいいでしょ。
True. Leave the arrangements with the hospital to me. I'll get something worked out.
ありがとう。ごめんね、迷惑かけて。
You know, maybe the other you could have coexisted alongside you if she didn't, tell you that she was her best friend or whatever. You're not a nuisance, but if you're feeling guilty anyway, you can show me your gratitude once you're feeling better.
エッチなことで。
No, don't be an idiot.
冗談。
Sure you are.
ねえ、できれば明日の朝、早くにここを出て病院に行きたい。
I don't mind, but why?
他の子に見られたら恥ずかしいじゃない。だから、それだけ。5時でお願いします。
Sure, not a problem. For now, you should get some rest.
うん、わかった。ねえ、ユージ。私、好き。なんて、言わないんだからね。
She delivers this line in such a subdued, quavery tone of voice that I can't help but laugh. Yeah, I got it. Alright then, I'll see you tomorrow.
またね。
Well, looks like I'm going to end up indebted to Chizuru yet again. I spend my walk to the principal's office ruminating on Michiru's story. Her tale's still fragmentary, and the plot's tangled. Deciphering it is going to be difficult. Might even turn out to be one of those books you can spend a lifetime on without ever finding a conclusive interpretation. But even so, I've decided to keep turning the pages. Why? Because it feels like the thing to do. Simple as that. You make it sound so simple, Yuji. I'd probably just close that book already and go for a new one. After we parted yesterday, Michiru slept soundly through the night, sharing the burden she'd carried in secret for so long. Even momentarily, must have brought her some relief. I explained the situation to Chizuru and had her arrange for an investigative stay in a nearby hospital. Of course, this involved enduring a great deal of sarcasm and sniping. Snipping, I guess? But our principal wasn't about to refuse to help a student in need of medical attention. I can't say whether she was moved more by pseudo parental affection or a professional concern for her responsibilities, but I suppose it hardly matters. Early the next morning, I prepared to see off Michiru. Normally, I'd be pulling on my sweats and heading out for a run right about now, but today I'm skipping that. An exercise routine is only meaningful when you follow it faithfully. There's no point to doing it at all if you take days off. But I understand that some things are more important than a training schedule. Some things can withstand a day's neglect. Others can be lost in a heartbeat. Difficult as it can be to accurately identify the difference, prioritizing them appropriately is absolutely crucial. I take breaks too from my exercise routine from time to time, but pretty damn rare. Maybe like once every couple of weeks. I head upstairs to Michiru's room and knock lightly on the door, but there's no answer. She's most likely still preparing for her departure. It's generally understood that women take time to get themselves ready to go anywhere. Deciding it best not to rush the girl, I patiently stand by in front of her room for some time. Finally deciding that we need to get going, I call out her name. Michiru? Michiru? But again, there's no response. I suppose it's a little early for her. Maybe she's still sleeping. Michiru, everything alright in there? At last, there's a quiet answer from inside the room.
もう何回か名前呼んで。そしたら行く。
Oh, sorry. Strikes me as a bit of a strange request, but I obey. Michiru! 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 After repeating her name numerous times, I hear a rummaging sound from within. A moment later, Michiru eases open the door, dragging along a small suitcase as if it were loaded with bricks. The girl's wearing strangely dressy clothing. What's with the outfit?
え、どうしたってどうもしてないよ。だって会えなくなるから最後は可愛い服で会いたい。
Sure, but you're only going for a week or so, right? You'll be back soon enough. What's the point?
だからユージは女心が分かってないって言われるのよ。
Oh, who's they?
榊だ。
Sakaki, huh?
なんだか寂しいな。
Michiru pouts a little, a clear shade of melancholy in her eyes. Seeing her take this attitude, I feel a twinge of reluctance myself. Maybe the girl could stay. My help might be enough to pull her through the worst of it.
どうしたの？怖い顔して。
Well... The hell? Why would I just stay like this? Of course she needs
整
help!
理しますか？
Oh my god, are we actually already at the end of Michiru's route soon? I mean, this is probably gonna go the bad ending route, so I guess sure. Don't leave after all, let's stay together. You don't need to go to a hospital, alright? Just be with me. It'll be enough. Yeah, this is totally gonna be okay. All of a sudden, I'm hugging Michiru tightly. I didn't really expect to get so emotional about this, honestly. My body seems to be moving faster than my mind.
ユージ、痛いよ。
Yeah, sorry. Reflex.
ついじゃないでしょ。私はちゃんと病院に行って検査する。ユージは寮でお留守番。これはユージが決めたことじゃない。
True enough. Lost my cool for a moment there. Sorry about that.
いいよ。っていうか、嬉しかった。
Is this actually the right choice? What the? With one last bright smile, Michiru turns to leave.
じゃあね、ユージ。またね。
And just like that, the girl disappeared from the dormitory. Without her, the school felt strangely cold and quiet, like a rain-damp forest in winter. I awaited her return, filling the time with my reading. It was just a week. Only a week. The books I completed form a pile at my bedside. Just as the tower reached 20 volumes, the principal called me to her office. I guess this might have been the correct choice. Something wrong with Michiru?
そうね。どうかしたわね。ものすごくどうかしたわよ。
I entered the office to find Chizuru unusually hostile. I seat myself on the sofa and stare her straight in the eyes. So tell me, don't sugarcoat it. Something about her illness?
病気じゃないわ。彼女、自殺したわ。
Again? Suicide? Again? Why? But it was only an attempt, right?
そうね。でも、だから良かったとは到底言えないわ。入院初日に隠し持っていた大量の薬をアルコールと同時に摂取。胃も洗浄したんだけど間に合わなかったみたい。病院側も検査入院の初日だから油断してたのね。
Too late.
一時的な心肺停止による酸素欠乏。脳に障害が残る可能性が高いわ。
What did you just say? Jesus, where's Michiru right now? Let me see her.
落ち着いて。
Just tell me where she is, damn it.
落ち着きなさい。風見くんらしくないわよ。
Yeah, I guess this is the bad choice. The fuck, Michiru? The hell does that matter right now?
松島さんはもうすぐこの学園に戻ってくるわ。ご両親ともどうするか相談をしたんだけど、引き続きここで面倒を見るということになった。
What's that supposed to mean?
そのままの意味よ。手間がかかりそうだから私たちに押し付けようってことね。今時のご両親ね。外にタクシーが見えるかしら。あなたのアリスよ。早く迎えに行ってあげなさい。
Damn it. Well, good to know this is the bad choice. Michiru? Welcome back. I don't know why Michiru attempted suicide once again, but whatever her reasons, it doesn't change the fact that she came back to this world alive. And that's a hell of a lot better than the alternative. You alright? Think you can walk? Looks like you went through a lot. Must be tired. The girl tries to respond to my words, but seems to have forgotten how. Sometimes she closes her eyes for a long moment and lets out a slow sigh. Don't worry. Nothing's changed. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to leave your luggage here. Need anything? Will you be alright by yourself?
Yeah.
I see. I'll stay with you then. From that day forth, I began to live at Michiru's side. At first, the others were shocked at her complete transformation, but they tried their best to interact with their friend as usual. Unfortunately, Michiru no longer seemed interested.
Huh? お兄ちゃんとチルチル。
Oops. Watch it, Machina. I think you're aware, but lately this girl seems to be considering any woman who gets too close to me as an enemy.
それは知ってるけど、あんまりなのよさ。チルチル、私は大丈夫だよ。味方だよ。
I don't think you're helping, Machina.
こらこらマキナ、変なところで対抗心燃やさないの。ミチルとユージの邪魔しちゃダメでしょ。でも邪魔って言っても何もしてないのよさ。いいからいいから、ごめんねユージ。
Not a problem. See you later.
つまんないのよさ。ミチル様、こんにちは。どこかへお出かけですか？ 今日はご機嫌がよろしいみたいですね。いつもより声が小さめです。
Surprised you could even gather from that, Sachi. Suppose so. Michiru, my friend, why don't we go on a date today? I'll take you wherever you want to go.
デートみちる様、嬉しそうですね。
That she does. Makes me feel pretty good myself.
みちる様が帰ってきてから風見さんはとても優しいお顔になりました。私、それは素敵なことだと思います。
That a fact. It's kind of strange to hear you say that, but maybe I have changed a little.
気をつけていってらっしゃいませ。
I slowly walk down the coastal road, leading Michiru along. She steadily gazes up into the sky at my side. Periodically, she rubs her eyes with her free hand, dazzled by the light. Too bright? Don't stare into the sun. Heedless of my warning, she continues to repeat the pattern.
メルだ。ニャメル。
What was that? Partway to our destination, Michiru grabs a plastic bag that was fluttering across the road in the wind. She hugs the ratty piece of trash tightly, as if it were a priceless treasure.
ニャメル。かわいいね。ニャメル。
She's genuinely mistaken that white convenience store bag for her black cat. There's a stab of cold pain in my chest, but I shake it off and firmly stroke Michiru's head. Michiru closes her eyes in pleasure as I ruffle her hair. It's all I can do. No words come.
好き？
Yeah, I love you.
ニャメル好きだって。ニャメル。
Smiling happily, Michiru continues playing with her plastic bag. We sit there like this for an hour or so. In the end, I wasn't able to understand her in the slightest. Human beings can never really know each other's feelings, but I had hoped to find my way a little closer than this. Michiru's mind was far deeper and darker entrenched than I expected. Her story proved unintelligible, as if written in unfamiliar, cryptic characters, and the key to that cipher is lost to me now. Some part of me must have been clinging to the arrogant belief that I could save her, but in the end, I couldn't do a thing. Not even for a single girl. Did you just say something?
ニャメル。かわいいね。ニャメル。
Just my imagination. Anyway, it's starting to get chilly out. Let's go back, Michiru.
やだ。ここにいるの？ずっとここにいるの？どこにも行かないの？
You're a handful, you know that. Guess there's no getting around it. I'll stick with you till the end. Sure looks happy. For some time after that, Michiru and I gaze out at the sea, and I recall the words she spoke to me here once. When I'm up here, it feels like I can see all the way to the ends of the earth. But here we are, so very close, and I can't even make out the entrance to her heart. But when I reach out my hand, Michiru's there. That hasn't changed. That won't change. Seems like I finally stumbled into a calmer way of life. We'll go on together, just the two of us. No, the three of us, I suppose.
グリザイアの果実。
Well, that was a bad ending. I'm actually gonna take a short break though. But might as well end the episode right here. I'm not sure how long the true ending for Michiru's route is gonna be. But I don't think it's gonna be like that long. At least I don't know, maybe like an hour max. But I'm probably going to continue on with Sakaki's route after that, if we are going to finish it a bit earlier. But we'll see. But I just want to take a short break. It is 3:15 right now. I want to drink some milk or something. And yeah, I'll see you guys in a bit. Well, technically in 2 days for you guys. Well, technically 3 days, I guess. This is a Friday episode. But hope you guys enjoyed it. Like it if you like it. Sub if you haven't. And Patreon and all that. If you guys want some early releases. No sex scene though, which is quite surprising. I guess the next sex scene is going to be after we get to the good route. But alright, I'll see you guys in a bit. Peace out.